Hello everyone. This is me, Eddie. I hope it's a beautiful Python day out there. I'm going to go over this exercise. I have a challenge here. Okay, what I'm asked to do here, it says, given a list of field. I'm sorry. It's 7 p.m. It's what am I saying? It's 6:35 p.m. and I've been working since 6 in the morning. So my brain is challenging. Let's start all over. Okay, I'm going to read the challenge. Given a list filled with zeros and ones, find the maximum number of consecutive ones in this list. Here I am showing a pretty good example. If your list is this input here, what the program will do, it will count only the ones, not the zeros. And then after counting all the ones, it will finally return the maximum number of consecutive ones. In this case, we can see the program went and counted one, two, and then there is a zero. It count again one, two, three. So the maximum consecutive ones in this list is three. A little explanation says the first two digits or the last three digits are consecutive ones. The maximum number of consecutive ones is 3. By going over this exercise, I assume the learning points will be list and also how to manipulate items in list. Okay, what is a list? In Python, a list is a data structure that is mutable or changeable ordered sequence of elements, and each element or value that is inside of a list is called an item. So, like all these ones and the zero, they are items. Just as strings are defined as characters between quotes, lists are defined by having values between square brackets. So each time in Python that you have a series of items separated by a comma in a square brackets, there is no brainer. It's a list. So we are going to do this challenge. Okay, I'm gonna go over it, and we will figure this out. Now, before we even start getting our hands on the keyboard and begin to code, I'm going to recommend, and this is part of this tutorial, because I'm trying to build someone, I'm going to recommend two books for your Python journey if you want to learn Python. If you're starting from scratch or you have some Python knowledge, you will notice that the very first book that I recommend has nothing to do with computer programming or software engineering. The first book that I recommend to you is called The Go Giver, a little story about a powerful business idea. The ISBN number is 9781469063591. Please, I will recommend you to get this book. It's not an obligation, it's a recommendation. I purchased it myself. It was recommended to me by one of my mentor who is teaching me a lot about leadership and entrepreneurship. And I've ordered the audio book, and this is one of the greatest investment that my mentor has ever advised me to make on myself. The second book that I would recommend you get, because I am putting myself in your shoes if you know nothing about programming. This is me. My background, I went to school and I studied computer information system. I am right now doing my master degree in cybersecurity studies, and all I know about programming is that I took few class C++ and Java. I was too busy trying to pass my class and not fail that I learned nothing about programming. So everything that I know about programming today is self-taught. I just read, I Google stuff, I research them, I go through some mentorship program. I have wonderful mentors who until today help me in my coding skills, and now I have discovered by reading this book here that by giving, by sharing the very little knowledge that I know, it's a better way to have a deeper understanding. I decided not to wait any longer. So here I am trying to invest in someone else's life by sharing the little that I know so I can create room for my personal growth. So please go get this book. This second book is Python How to Program by Datel. This guy, Datel, is a genius. To my opinion, he is the best author for any programming language. The ISBN number for this book is 9780130923615. I am reading this book. I started from the very first page. If you know nothing about programming, please do not skip chapter 1 and 2. Read, read. It's a very thick book, and I read it until this day. And it's been amazing the progress that I made. Okay, let's code. The platform that I use to code, especially in Python, because is my favorite programming language, is PyCharm. Um, um, I hope you know what PyCharm is. If you don't, please Google it. PyCharm. PyCharm is the editor that I choose, but feel free to use whatever you want. Here it is, PyCharm. It's the best and it's free. There's a free version that I download. I'm using Windows. If you use Mac, it should work as well, or Linux, or whatever your operating system is. Now I have the challenge. I'm going to get started. I'm going to create a new Python file. I will name my file count underscore ones. There we go. Okay, let's get started. If we forgot, let's read the challenge again. Given a list filled with zeros and ones, find the maximum number of consecutive ones in this list. Here's an example. So, any list that we will be given, the assumption is the list will be made of ones and zeros. And the program has to be able to count every single one and return the maximum number of consecutive ones. I hope my English was not so hard to understand. Okay. I always like to, oh, it says no Python interpreter configured for the project. Okay. Thanks for letting me know. Let's configure the interpreter. Hopefully, how do you do that again? Add configuration. Uh, Let me get this done. Hold on. I'm gonna right click here and I'll go to configure. Debug. Okay, I clicked run. Python interpreter right there. I will apply and run. Okay, I guess we fixed and we're ready to start. Thanks PyCharm for letting me know. Alright, oh, no interpreter, no Python interpreter configured for the project. Okay, configure Python interpreter. This is where I was supposed to click at the first place. Project interpreter, it still says no interpreter. I'm going to manually select my Python interpreter. I have already downloaded. It says down here 2 processes running. Maybe it's working on it. Let's see. Okay, I think we're good now. I see a green check mark here. See? I'm learning as I'm teaching. How fun. Given a list filled with with, with zeros and ones, find the maximum number of consecutive ones in this list. These are the comments. When you comment a line in Python, you put the pound sign. Okay. Now, before I get started, I have given this a thought and I have brainstormed about it to try to figure out how am I going to get started and proceed. What I told myself is this. I will give myself a list of zeros and ones. Let me create a list. I'm gonna call my list track underscore ones equal 1 1 0. Okay, 1 1. Okay, I just manually typed the list that was given in the example, and I'm gonna write a program, a line of code that will supposed to return me 3, right? Because what my program will do, it will count each ones, skipping the zeros or ignoring the zeros, and it will return to me the maximum consecutive number of ones. And in here, the maximum consecutive number of ones is 3. If I had, let's say, an additional 1 here, then my program supposed to be smart enough to count 1, 2, 3, 4 and to return me 4 and etc. Okay, what I'm given is a list. I name a list track ones. Okay, you always want to give your variables, your objects, meaningful names, or your functions when we get to that, names that relate to the role of the function or the object. Now I'm going to create a function that will take go over each element in my list. My function, by going through each element, will determine if the element it's a 1 or a 0. If it's a 0, my function will have to ignore or skip it. But if it's a 1, it has to count it and go through each item here. All right, let's have fun. I create a function. I'm going to call my function find max. Now the function is there and exists. I need now to start writing codes. Okay, What my brain is telling me to do is to create a loop. Okay. What my loop and also, okay, my loop will count every single element. Next to my loop, I will also create an empty list. I will call my empty list count ones equal 1. Okay. Why did I create this empty list? Well, I create an empty list called count ones because I want to make sure what I'm trying to accomplish here is that as my for loops, as my loop is going through the initial list, for each element that it will have, it will keep track of the number of ones that is counting. Let's keep going. I will create another empty list. A list that I'm creating is like a bucket. I call this list only ones. This is what only ones will do. Only ones that I create is now empty. But as my loop will be growing, going through the initial list, it will the empty list only ones will keep track of all the ones that I have in the initial one. Okay, mate, doesn't make sense now, but it will at some point. All right. I create a variable called once, and the initial value of once will be 0. And I create another variable that I'm going to call loop count. Initial value is 0. Okay. I figured that I make it harder on myself trying to explain this variable, so I will go through the code and we explain. So here comes my loop. It's a for loop. For x in track once. Line 13 says for x in track once. What this means is that for every single item in my initial list, track once, the first thing that I want is for my loop count to be incremented by 1. Loop count is counting the number of time that my for loop is iterating through the initial list. And now if x is equal 1, I'm telling the program for the element in the loop, this is the condition that I'm creating. If the element is a 1, the first thing that you will do is to add 1, increment 1. Oof, English is hard. To add 1 to my variable ones that was initially set to 0. So if the element in the list, like the very first one, it's a 1, ones will be increment to 1. And the second thing that it will do, I will only once, which is my empty list, that append. Okay, here's my first condition. If the element in the list equal 1, if the item in the list equal 1, then ones increment by 1, and the list only ones append 1, meaning 1 is added into the list only once. The second thing that I will check, this is the condition, this is what happened if the item in the list is 1. Now what should happen if the item in the list is 0? this is what I did. If x equals 0 and loop count is less than 1, and the length of the list only 1 is greater than 0, what I want you to do is count ones, will append ones. I will explain this out later. Ones equal to 0 and only ones clear. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there. A little explanation. If the item, I want to see all the codes. If the item in the initial list equals 0 and loop count is greater than 1 and the length of only ones here is greater than 0, this means what? If we come into an item in the list that is 0 and that 0 is not the first element, is not the first item in the list, and also this part here, the length of only one is greater than 0. I want to verify also that not just that the 0 is not the first element in the list, but also that only ones already have elements in it. Then what I want you to do is count ones that appends ones. What count ones will do, it will load whatever value ones has, because what ones here does, ones here is the value of the consecutive number of ones until we hit a 0. Like when the loop will count 1 and 2, the value of 2 will be assigned to the variable ones here. And when we come into an item which is equal to 0, what we want to do, we want to take this consecutive ones, which value is 2, and we want to load it into the count ones list. And then we assign this value to reset to 0. And the only ones which is the list that collect every single one that we come across with by going through the loop, clear as well. The clear method here, empty a list. Oof, let's keep going. I'm really taking my time because I won't assume that everyone is a genius. So this is really for someone who just started. So I'm really taking my time, and I will give at the bottom of this video. I will put the link of my GitHub where all the codes will be able to be found. Now let's continue. If loop count is equal to the length of track once, count once, append ones. This condition here that said if loop count is equal to the length of track ones is to verify if we have come now to loop and get the last item of our list. If that's the case, then this condition is satisfied and this other series of code will start. So this series of code don't start as long as we're still looping through the list. Now if the condition happens to be true, what we will do is that we will upload whatever value that's in ones, and I explain what ones is, gets to be uploaded into the list count ones. Now what do we do next? If count ones count ones equal 0, count ones that remove count ones count ones minus 1. Okay, let's go to this. This last two code here is to make sure that, let's say, to make it simple, the explanation is, let's say the last item of our list, it's a 0. Okay, because it's all about ones in this challenge here. So it says this: if count ones indexed length of count ones minus 1 is equal to 0. Meaning what? If the very last item of the list is equal to 0, what I want you to do is to go into count ones and to remove that last item. That's pretty much what it says. Now, once the for loop is complete, we will print input track ones, print output x. So what is it that we did pretty much? Now, okay, first of all, the first print statement, what are we printing? We are printing the list that was given to us. Print input track ones, the given list. And the second print statement, print output max count ones. So pretty much count ones here, this empty list that we create. Once the for loop will complete, what count ones will do is it will have every single, it will have the number of each consecutive ones. Like, let's say in here, given this list, when the for loops complete, the value of count ones will be 1, 2, 2 will be 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4. So pretty much we're not printing this, but at the end of the for loop, these are the numbers that we're putting in our count ones here. That's why the last printing statement says max count 1. Max is a Python built-in method that takes a list as an argument. And what max do, it goes and compare each element of a list and it returns the one that has the greatest value. So let's say our given list was this here, meaning we have first two consecutive ones, we ignore the zero, and then 1, 2, 3, and then three consecutive ones. This would be the value of count ones at the end of the for loop. And when we would print max count ones, it would return 3. So just I'm trying to give an explanation and make it as easy as possible, because I recall when I was in class in college, the professor was just assuming a whole bunch of things. So I will never make the mistake to assume and say, oh, this is pretty easy. So I'm trying to break it down and be as slow as possible. And again, at the bottom of the video, you have a link to my GitHub. I will do my best to upload all my tutorial in my GitHub. Now, next, this is a line of code about 32 lines. Now, what we want to do next is we want to test if our code is working as expected. I'm gonna add a comment, return the maximum number of consecutive ones. Okay, now we need to run the function find max. The function find max, once we run it by calling the function, it will go through each and every single line of code and execute them. How do we call it? Just by typing it. So this is our output form. So what I will do, I will come here on the file, right click and click run count. How beautiful. Look what we have. We have exactly, it prints out the given list and it's telling us, okay, I have counted 1 and 2, and I've also counted 1, 2, and 3, and 3 happen to be the maximum consecutive number of ones. Let's test and challenge our program. Let's turn this 0, the last one, into a 1. Of course, once a change is made, you have to save. Always save. I'm using my keyboard, so I'm hitting Control S to save. Okay, let me run it again. I can right click and run it here, or I can run it right here. Wow, the program is smart enough to count that now we have not 3 but 1, 2, 3, and 4 consecutive ones. Let's challenge it even more. I'm gonna add 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Let's see. Okay, it returned output 7. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Excellent. Let's keep on trying as many possibilities as we can. Let's reduce this to 2, and on the very first sequence of ones, let's see if it's going to catch it. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 consecutive ones. Let's run it. Awesome. So we do have what we're looking for. and that's it. So it was not that hard, and I hope you do get to reproduce this code. You can pause the video and take these codes, practice on them, run them, make mistakes, figure out about the mistakes. Please get the books that I recommend, and uh, it was a very good Python day. I'll see you next time.